What's up, guys? This is the Gospel according to Mark with a C. He is I and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. And guys, I saw the Joker film yesterday, and I want to do a little bit talking about it, give you my thoughts on things. And I've been dying to do this since I saw it yesterday, but you know me, work and all that stuff. And it's funny because it hasn't taken long for the same dynamic to start that is like going around and around and around in pop culture. You know, you have a split audience, half the audience thinks that it's the best thing in the world, right? And the other half thinks that it's overblown. I'm even taking the critics out of this equation, okay? The critics are going to do what the critics do. I'm just talking about the general audience, you know what I mean? It's like you have people who are just so contrary. We should call ourselves Generation Mary Mary because we're quite contrary. And I said, like a long time ago, I said that the worst thing to happen to us in modern times is the like or dislike button, because that just seems to be the mentality that we all have. It's like either we like or we dislike, but nobody gets together to explain or respect the differences between each other. You know what I mean? You have people who are content creators who have anxiety based on how many likes they get, or they can validate their point by showing how many likes they get, or invalidate somebody else's point by showing how many dislikes that they got. You know what I mean? Without even like fully debating or being able to meet, like somehow in a good, healthy exchange of ideas. You see that's getting a lot less common these days. People just don't like people who take a stand or have any set opinion about anything, so that's what's going on, to the point where I don't even think it's useful to even give reviews anymore, because the minute you say that you love something, chances are you're going to get a lot of people coming out of the woodwork to say that they hate it just because you said that you love it. You know what I mean? And vice versa. So it's really quite boring. I think that if you're going to do reviews these days, just because of the way it is, you should probably explain more about what it means to you personally. Or if you dislike something, you should be prepared to do the same thing. If you want to actually, like post something or call attention to your opinion, because everyone can have an opinion, but when you put it online, you're going to get challenged for it. So keeping that in mind, I figure I'll talk about some of the things that I felt while watching The Joker. All right. And I should say, like right off the bat, I love the movie. The performance of Joaquin Phoenix was just one for the books. It's like I went in thinking that nobody could touch Heath Ledger's Joker. But this is a totally different take on it. And I have to start off by apologizing to Joaquin Phoenix, because months ago I did a video talking about how Joaquin Phoenix made a statement that he didn't care, or he wasn't thinking about what fans wanted as much as he was thinking about his performance. Now, the difference is when you see a performance like this, you can't help but say to yourself, I get it, Joaquin. I understand. You are the fucking man. And he was in the zone so much. And when you're channeling that type of energy, that type of performance, I can totally understand why you would want to block out the fans. This is something different than, say, a certain director who takes on Star Wars and wants to disregard what the fans say. That's different. You know what I'm saying? This is an actual performance. It's like a director, he has a job to do, this is true, but he's not doing a job with something that he's created necessarily, especially when you step into something like Star Wars. I mean, yes, he did create the story, he wrote it, he directed it and stuff like that, but you do have to take into consideration the fandom and the history. So I think what Joaquin Phoenix was talking about was more how do I want to approach this iconic character? You know what I mean? And like I said, after seeing the performance, I have to apologize. Joaquin, you knew what you were doing, okay? Because what he came up with is just something totally riveting, and as I watched it, and there wasn't like it was a ton of action. It was just a movie of like a slow burn, you know what I mean? But as I watched it, I didn't nod out, you know what I mean? And this is something that I'm famous for. It's like if a movie starts to lag or gets quiet too long or whatever, it's like chances are they're going to hear me snoring in the movie theater, you know what I'm saying? But in this one, that wasn't the case. In this one, I was just like, I have a big tub of popcorn. Just watching it, so never lost my interest and my attention ever, but I have some feelings, all right? And like I said, right off the bat, I love the movie. I would give it And you know I have this flush system, you know what I mean? Where if you get 0 flushes, That's the best rating that you can get from me. That means there's no shit in there at all that needs to be flushed. If you get 4 flushes, it means it's full of shit. So I would give this one flush, all right, which is very good. The only reason why I even give it that flush is because I have some concerns with the way it all ended, and I really can't talk about that because this is not going to be one of those spoiler talk kind of videos. But you know, maybe later on, you know, I'll be able to talk a little bit about what my reservations were with the ending of the movie. And it wasn't even like it was something technical. It was just something that, it's a question, you know, that I have when it comes to the character of the Joker and the evolution of the Joker, you know, and the implications of how it ended. I got some questions about that. So because of that, I gave it one flush, because that kind of took away to me from the character that I know in a significant way, maybe, you know, but when I get to talk about it with others, maybe that'll change, you know, but for now I gave it one flush. But the reason why, and this is what the video is primarily about, the reason why I feel like there's a phenomenon outside of the phenomenon that is the movie, and that is the media and the way the media has been interpreting this movie, where they want to, think I saw last week the FBI was giving a warning, you know, to the masses, you know, about a possible mass shooting. Everyone remembers what happened, you know, with, what was it, the Dark Knight shooting? What was that, in Oklahoma? Was it Oklahoma, Colorado? You know, but anyway, there was a shooting, and it was terrible. All right, so there's concern that this movie is going to appeal to angry white men, of course, you know, and my feelings on this. Let me just start off by kind of telling a quick story, okay? And you got to bear with me here. I remember quite a while back, you know, on my job, I had a supervisor, you know, and my supervisor was probably about, put him about maybe 5'4", you know, and I remember he saw me joking around with some coworkers, and you know, because I'm just that lovable kind of guy, you know, personable I try to be, you know, and afterwards he came over to me and he says, "Mark, if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to end your career." And I remember thinking to myself, is this dude fucking kidding me? Or what? I mean, I never bother anyone. You know, as a matter of fact, the guys on the job thought it was funny that he would start with me, of all people, you know, because I don't bother anybody. You know, like I said, I try to stay on an even keel. I like to think I have a reputation for that, you know. There's a couple of guys that I work with who watch these videos. If I'm lying, you can tell me. But anyway, so this guy declared war on my career, okay? And it caused me some stress. I remember having to complain about him, you know, to a higher up, who told me, and you guys can't tell because, you know, most of the time you see me sitting down here, but I am 6'5", around 300 pounds, okay? So I remember the guy that I complained to said, "Well, you know, Mark, you are kind of intimidating, you know, to him." And I was like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to walk around on my knees, you know, at work? I can't do that." You know what I mean? It's like somehow he's got to come to grips with the fact that he works with a big dude, you know? But I don't know. Anyway, the harassment kept on going. And around the same time, one of my very best friends in the whole world told me that she had breast cancer. All right. And this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I want to give a shout out to everyone who is living with that, who has lived with it, you know, to any breast cancer survivors that are out there, to those who love them. If you've had a mother, a sister, a girlfriend, a wife, you know, this does affect men too. It's like every time I give a shout out on Breast Cancer Awareness Month, inevitably in the comment section, someone is always going to say, "Well, where's the shout out for guys who are living with testicular cancer and all that stuff?" I understand, okay? It's just that this is one of my very best friends in the whole world. All right, and I did a video years ago, actually literally crying on camera, you know, remembering her. And she was truly one of my best friends, and I miss her every single day. So she told me, you know, around that time that she had breast cancer. So it's like I'm dealing with being harassed at work, my best friend fighting breast cancer. You know, around that time, you know, things started to fall apart, you know, with the wife at the time. And I had a disturbing dream, by the way, you know, where it's like me and my wife were getting married. We were having a big wedding, right? And we never had a big wedding because, you know, I just wanted to get to the business of providing, you know, and all that stuff, and spending money in other more important places, which I did, by the way, you know. So anyway, in the dream, we were at a big wedding, and slowly but surely, everything around me disappeared. You know what I mean? It's like all the guests disappeared. You know, the preacher or whoever disappeared. Finally, she disappeared. And I remember in the dream, it was just me and nothing but blankness. You know, everything left me. And I remember thinking to myself, something is coming, you know? So, yeah, and I think subconsciously I probably knew that the marriage was in trouble. So, you know, she made it known to me that, you know, you know, the marriage was pretty much on its way out. We decided we were going to work on it, but it was a struggle. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then, and bear with me, guys, bear with me on this. It's like then, you know, suddenly, you know, I got the call that, you know, my brother, you know, was in the hospital, and, you know, he ended up passing away. So I was going through all of that like right around the same time. You know, the boss is trying to end my job. You know, the marriage is falling apart. My brother's passed away. And, you know, a couple of months after that, my grandfather passed away. You know, my mom, you know, was having a hard time. He didn't know if she wanted to live anymore. And it was just so much, so much going on. And, you know, once the divorce proceedings started, you know, with my wife, ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, she was talking about somehow she had proposed that I sign away my rights to my son so she could just do what she wanted to do, which I could never do. You know what I mean? I think you guys have been watching me long enough to know that that's impossible. But somehow, after being married for 17 years, she didn't know that was impossible. So she tried it. You know, my son was living somewhere else, you know, for a while. And, you know, I talked about all this stuff on video too. Bear with me, guys. There's a reason for it. You know, yeah, so my son was away from me. And it seemed like I was just losing just everything, you know, and I was just wondering, what is life? You know what I mean? And, you know, part of why I say this is because I remember coming home from the so-called family court where many a broken dreams happen, you know? And I remember sitting down on the bed. My son was nowhere around. I couldn't call my brother to talk to him because he was gone. My best friend, you know, was she was on her way out, you know, and you know, she was in bad shape, and it was inevitable. You know, her cancer was very aggressive, and I remember sitting down on the bed, and I remember laughing, and I laughed, and I laughed, and I laughed, and I laughed, and I laughed until I started to cry. And watching the Joker, it brought back that situation. You know what I mean? Has anyone out there ever had that happen to them where life just seems to fuck with you so much that all you can do is just laugh? Like, what else? You know what I mean? What else? And of course, there can always be more. You know, it could always get worse. But in that moment, you're thinking to yourself, what more? What more? You know what I mean? And you start laughing and laughing, and you cry. And, you know, I could relate to that. You know what I'm saying? I could relate to that. And through it all, you're not supposed to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing about Joker also that I found to be so poignant. When he writes on a piece of paper, the most annoying thing about being mentally ill is you're expected to act like you're not. You know, and with a lot of men, the worst thing about being a man who's going through some shit is you're supposed to man up. Right? You're supposed to man up. Guys, how many times have we been told that? Man up! You know, you're supposed to act like you're not going through some shit because the last thing you want is to be called a pussy. You know, so you kind of find your ways to deal with it. You joke. You laugh to keep from crying. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's why I did a video before telling people, you know, with my singing, you know, because sometimes people hear me singing, and for some people that's off-putting, you know, so they're like, man, you can't sing, what are you singing for? And I'm like, it ever occurred to you that when I get in front of these videos, sometimes it's therapeutic for me, you know? It's like after, you know, like I said, after, you know, this guy messing with my job, by the way, I was able to fight back, but I'll get into that later. All right, after this guy messing with my job, at the same time my wife is leaving, you know, at the same time I'm losing the home that I worked so hard for. And it's funny because I do a very physical job, you know, so it's like, bear with me, guys, I say again, it's like the pain that I have in my body right now is from doing a very physical job. I get aches and pains, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I walk like an 85-year-old, but I get aches and pains and stuff. And I always laugh about that because after losing, half of my retirement, after losing the home that I worked so hard to build for my son, that stuff is gone. Like the home is gone, half my retirement was gone. Half my time with my son was supposed to be gone, but thank God that worked out. And my friend, my best friend, she's gone. My brother, he's gone. Somehow the aches and pains are still here, that led up to that. And you're supposed to just man up and get over it. Now, I am far from the only man who goes through this. All right, I'm far from the only person who goes through this, but right now I'm talking about men for a reason. All right, but yeah, far from the only one. But the point is that the media, I believe, shuns Joker because it tells a truth. It tells a truth about what we want to ignore, in this world. And right now, masculinity and all that comes with it today in 2019, about to be 2020, is considered to be toxic. Remember, they tried to sell that to us? Just being a man is being toxic. The ability to be able to laugh in the face of adversity, and to tell crude jokes or whatever the case may be, is supposed to be toxic. And this is what I feel the pushback is ultimately about, because it's not about what these things inspire. It's not about, men hitting the breaking point and going out in violence because you've seen the Joker. It's not about that. What it really is about, I believe, is it's about what society doesn't want to see. They don't want, it's not that they don't want us to see it because they think that it's going to inspire something terrible. I think it's just what they just don't want to accept and what they don't want to see. So they don't want to see how many men die every day in family court. They don't want to see, what it does to men to have their children taken away from them. Everybody wants to talk about, taking kids away for illegal immigrants and all that stuff. Every day in family court, men lose their children that they love so much due to no-fault divorce. They lose it all. You know what I'm saying? And they lose their homes. They lose their retirement. They lose their cars, their possessions. They use their love, And the reason why more of us don't lose our minds is because we're just not crazy. You understand? It's like one of the things that I believe is not giving away too much from the Joker to say this, but if it is, I will say, spoiler alert, it has to do with his laugh. The involuntary laugh that I was talking about earlier, where he's saying that he believed that it was due to a condition. But he just simply says that was wrong. Sometimes the laughter, sometimes the crude jokes, sometimes the off-color humor or whatever the case may be, it might just be a way of logically reacting to the illogical. The world just might be that crazy, and sometimes the response that we have just might not be acceptable to some others, and I'm not talking about going out and murdering people, because like I said before, with my boss, thank God we have a system that I was able to use to fight back. My job is unionized, so grievances came into play, and I ended up winning the case. The guy had to back up off me. He ended up apologizing because he knew that was going to be his ass. You got to be a fighter, not a killer. When it comes to families and the way families are breaking up, and men who lose everything, their children, their homes, their wives, their loves, and things like that. We have a way of picking up ourselves, whether it's support system, other men around us who take us out, have some fun, go somewhere, even if it's like a strip joint or something, a sporting event. There are so many things that you can do to somehow deal with the things that get you. So, in other words, it won't be a movie that creates killers. You know, it won't be a movie that you need to be afraid of. What you should be afraid of is trying to stifle the truth about what people go through. You know, in this case, I'm talking about men. God knows that women go through things too. But I don't think you're going to have as many people talking about, what is it, Birds of Prey? Like I saw that trailer. You know, a woman is literally crushing a man's balls in the trailer. If you had a man doing something like that to a woman, and that was supposed to be your central character, there might be a problem there. You know, but I'm just saying, this is the society that we live in now. You know, men are held to this toxic masculinity thing, so that's what we deal with. So, guys, that's the point. It's like all the hubbub that's been made about the Joker film, you know, it's just overblown. It's like it's a good movie. If anything, it's a cautionary tale, you know, about what could happen if people don't have, you know, certain things in place. You know, support groups. You have to know who you're around. You know, he was going to a counselor. Well, they show this much in the trailer. You know, he was going to some type of therapist. And one of the most important lines also is when the therapist says to him, look, they're cutting our funding. We can't do this anymore. And then she just brings it down to the bottom line. She says, listen, they don't give a shit about you. People like you. And they don't give a shit about people like me. You know what I mean? This morning, I woke up and I went to go check Twitter. And this is what I saw, okay? All right, now that's a beautiful way to start the day, isn't it? You know what I mean? Good morning, good morning. Oh shit, you know? But, you know, the funny thing about that is I think this guy, the one who did it, you know, he calls himself being inspired, you know, by the Joker. I think his screen name that he gave is Joker Says the N-Word. You know, so I don't know. You guys might have got it too. It seems like this is something he did on Twitter. And not to give him any light or anything like that. The funny thing is, fuckface, is that right now, we're all some niggers. You know why? Because ultimately, this is classism. All right? And the ones who are up top have been manipulating all of us. I think more of us are starting to understand that. I think that's why you see more white men and more black men are starting to find common ground. Because that's what it's always been about. You know, people talk about this movie was inspired by Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, but it was also inspired by, especially in the end, I felt like it was inspired by Gangs of New York. Because, you know, you have the high class, you know, the socialites facing the wrath of the lower class, you know, or the poor. By the way, guys, I had a scary thought when I was watching, I guess when I was thinking about Gangs of New York. Daniel Day-Lewis in his prime playing the Joker. Could you imagine? But I think Joaquin Phoenix is probably the closest that we're going to get to that because he was just so awesome. You know, but that would have been amazing. But this is the point that I'm trying to make, you know, for the guy who did that. Understand, it's like you doing that, you're just completely missing the point. You know, so Joker is a reminder, you know, to the media, you know, to those who manipulate everyone about kind of what can happen when you just want to ignore what's out there, you know. And that's not to say that people are going to go in and start shooting up the theater. That's not what I think. I just think that certain things we're uncomfortable being reminded that's just beneath the surface, you know. So that's what it is, you know, for all of the men who suffer in family court, you know, who suffer on the job, you know, all the stresses of life. And like I said, women go through it too, but we're just talking about the men here because the men are the ones who are being called toxic. It's an uncomfortable reminder, and it's one that I feel like our agenda-driven media would rather not be out there, you know. So hence, the Joker is going to have, you know, a pretty mediocre to bad rating, you know, on Rotten Tomatoes, or depending on what site that you're on. That's what it is. But for my money, I did enjoy it. It was very troubling I like the Bruce Wayne connection. You know, they did a lot of things right. And that's how I feel about it, guys. So those were my thoughts while watching it, and I will continue having thoughts afterwards. It is a very thought-provoking film. It's a very beautiful film, very well shot. Joaquin Phoenix, like I said before, man, you had to go to some crazy places to play that role. I appreciate it. You know, if there's any award that you can get for this, you should get it. You deserve it. And that's it, guys. Of course, if you've seen it, you can get in the comment section. Tell me what you thought. Please try to stay away from spoilers. This is just opening weekend, you know, so there's a lot of people who still haven't seen it. So, yeah, be in the comment section. Let me know what's up. You can like, you can share, you can subscribe. Of course, hit the notification bell. I would appreciate it. As always, I am on Twitter. Check me out. And I will see you guys on the next one. This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.